Lot's wife. The curse behind the salt. This isn't just the story of a woman who turned into a statue. It's the story of a gaze, an instant of hesitation, and a mystery that spans ages. The nameless woman, the Bible never tells us the name of Lot's wife. She is simply Lot's wife, faceless, voiceless, without agency. But in the darkest moment of Sodom's history, she became the most enigmatic symbol of all the destruction. As the heavens roared with fire, as the city dissolved in flames and screams, she stopped. She looked back and turned to salt. For centuries, this image has haunted theologians, philosophers, mystics, and occultists. But who was this woman? And what really happened in that look? The gaze that broke the veil. The order was clear. Flee. Do not look back. But she looked. Why? Perhaps out of attachment. Perhaps out of longing. Perhaps because her heart was still there, within the walls of Sodom, among the market smells, the hugs of friends, the memories of a life built in silence. But some say that look was more than that. Some occultists claim she saw what was not permitted. When Sodom was judged, reality tore open for an instant. The angels were not just winged beings, they were guardians of portals. And the destruction was not just fire, it was a sealing ritual. By looking back, she stared into the abyss between worlds and paid the price. The salt of alchemy. Why salt? Not stone, not ashes, not sand, salt. In occultism, salt is one of the three principles of alchemy: salt, sulfur, and mercury. It represents fixed matter, the body bound to form. Salt preserves, crystallizes, paralyzes. By becoming a pillar of salt, Lot's wife was not merely destroyed. She was sealed, immobilized between worlds, trapped on the border of the visible and the invisible. Like an eternal reminder, there are doors that can only be crossed with eyes closed. Some apocryphal Gnostic texts suggest that she did not die, but that her spirit was frozen between dimensions, punished not by the physical gaze, but by the secret desire to return to the corruption she claimed to have left behind. The prison of the hesitant soul. In Gnosticism, the material world is seen as a prison. Salvation comes through gnosis, the hidden knowledge that frees the soul. Lot's wife was fleeing Sodom, a city symbolizing spiritual degradation, but carried Sodom within herself. When she looked back, it wasn't curiosity, it was longing. She desired what God condemned, and there her soul was judged. Turning into salt was a spiritual sentence. She would eternally be the image of hesitation, of the soul that sees the light but still loves the darkness. The woman who saw angels. As men, the angels were received by Lot with hospitality. But in ancient mysticisms, there is a disturbing detail. To see an angel in human form and not recognize it is a spiritual failure. It is the refusal of the sacred in disguise. Perhaps Lot's wife mocked the visit, or perhaps she resisted fleeing because she did not believe the messengers were celestial. She did not see the invisible, and for that, she was overcome by the visible. When reality collapsed in Sodom, she looked, and the veil was torn away. The statue that guards the threshold. Ancient Jewish mystics tell strange stories. They say that the statue of Lot's wife stood for centuries, visible on the shore of the Dead Sea, and that at night one could hear a murmur coming from it, not a scream, but a whisper of eternal repentance. For Kabbalists, salt is a symbol of purification, but also of the imprisonment of the Shekinah, the divine presence in exile. The woman became a totem, a guardian of Sodom's closed portal, a mystical seal, preventing the city's corruption from crossing the threshold of time. The forbidden legend. In the most secret Gnostic circles, there is an even darker theory. They say that Lot's wife didn't turn into salt as punishment, but as protection. She saw something she shouldn't have, a vision so terrible, so cosmic, that it could drive anyone mad. And then the angels, to prevent her from speaking, froze her in physical form. Salt, here, is like the crystal of time, a contained body, a locked soul, a silent witness to what was seen between worlds. Some mystics believe that if someone touched this statue at the right moment, with the correct word, they could awaken the memory of what happened before the fall of Sodom. But who would dare? The curse of salt in Jewish tradition, Lot's wife is remembered with sorrow, but also as a warning. Salt, which in Scripture also represents covenant and purity, here takes on an inverse meaning: the broken covenant, the impurity that crystallized. She represents the curse of those who walk with the righteous, but carry their hearts among the wicked. And more, she represents the invisible woman of the biblical narrative, nameless, voiceless, without choice. And perhaps, precisely for that, she became such a powerful symbol. Epilogue. The echo of salt in us. How many times have you looked back? How many times have you said you wanted to change, but kept one foot in the past? How many times have you carried Sodom in your heart, even while praying for deliverance? Lot's wife lives in us. Every time we hesitate before transformation, every time we desire comfort more than salvation. She didn't turn to salt by chance. She turned to salt because some souls are not lost screaming. They are lost in silence. Final reflection. The unfinished mystery. Perhaps the pillar of salt was never just a punishment. Perhaps it is a question frozen in time. Are you ready to go on without looking back? If you enjoyed this deep and somber reflection, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue revealing the forgotten shadows of biblical history. See you in the next deep dive. But be careful what you carry in your heart. Because sometimes judgment doesn't come from heaven. It comes from the mirror. Some stories don't die. They just wait to be retold. And sometimes a woman's silence says more about the fall of a city than all the fire that fell from the sky. In the vastness of the Scriptures, great names echo like thunder. Moses, David, Elijah, Paul. Even Lot, Abraham's nephew, is remembered and even called righteous by some later texts. But what about his wife? She has no name. She has no voice. She has no defense. All that is known is that she looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. For millennia, this image has haunted the imagination of those who dare to interpret beyond the letters. But what if this wasn't just a punishment? What if it was a spiritual prison, a mystical seal, a warning? And what if, in that petrified woman, a secret was hidden that Sodom took with it when it was swallowed by the flames? The woman who looked back, the Bible, is dry, direct, almost cold. But Lot's wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Genesis 19 verse 26. No emotion, no explanation. But what makes someone look back when heaven commands them to flee? The answer may lie between the lines, in the gestures, in the silences. Lot's wife was not just a companion. She was a woman who built her life in Sodom. Her furniture, her friendships, her memories, perhaps even her own desires. She was not from the desert like Abraham. She was from the city, from the walls, from the feasts, from stability. And when it all began to crumble, perhaps something inside her cried out, what if? The forbidden gaze in Jewish tradition, looking back, is not just physical, it is spiritual. It is an attachment to what God has already declared condemned. It is an attempt to maintain ties with what must be left behind. It is, above all, a subtle rebellion. But mystics go further. Kabbalah, Gnosticism, Christian mysticism all suggest that Lot's wife's gaze was more than longing. It was an invocation, a hidden desire to keep Sodom alive within herself. And in that instant, she became part of what she loved, not carbonized, not burned, but preserved in salt. As if the universe said, you want Sodom? Then let Sodom be you, forever. Salt is not punishment. It is symbol. Why salt? Fire destroyed, but salt preserved. In spiritual alchemy, salt represents the fixed point. What remains? What carries memories? It is the element of earth that resists transmutation. Salt purifies, but also paralyzes. Lot's wife did not turn to dust. She did not vanish into the wind. She was preserved, conscious or not. Her body is now an altar, a barrier, a warning between the world of the living and the echoes of Sodom. Some occultists suggest that the pillar of salt is an energetic seal, an intersection point between dimensions, a petrified portal. Those who approach feel it, a cold, a weight, a whisper. Sodom still speaks. The silent scream. Imagine being trapped in time, watching centuries pass, observing nomads, kings, monks, and tourists surrounding you, all judging your mistake, none asking your pain. The curse of Lot's wife is twofold. The salt immobilizes her externally, but her story imprisons her internally. She becomes the symbol of female disobedience, of attachment, of error. But perhaps she wasn't just a rebellious woman. Perhaps she was the only lucid one. The only one who saw that the end is not just destruction, but also injustice. She saw Lot's silence. She saw the hypocrisy of the angels. She saw the abandonment, the forgotten name, and the hidden name. Why doesn't she have a name? Because whoever names gives power. And tradition has always feared women who see too much. But in some Gnostic traditions, she is called Adareth. In others, Idith or Ishitzaloch, sent woman. As if her mission was greater than supposed. She didn't just fail, she awakened. And for that, she was sealed. The salt of the earth and the taste of lost Jesus, centuries later, would say, "You are the salt of the earth." But if the salt loses its savor, how shall it be seasoned? A distant echo? Or a reminder that salt, a symbol of Lot's wife, is also a symbol of faith that remains, even the desert? Perhaps she was not forgotten. Perhaps she was transformed into an eternal symbol of warning. When the heart clings more to ruins than to promises, it fossilizes. Chapter 8. The closed portal of Sodom. Some ancient rituals, forbidden and buried by time, speak of the mouth of Sodom, a place where the veil between worlds was thinnest, where the cries of the condemned still echoed. And there, they say, rests the statue, but few dare to approach. Those who go feel nausea, visions, dreams, as if the salt still contained fragments of a civilization that rejected the divine and embraced the abyss. Others say the place is guarded, that the salt is just a shell, that inside the stone there are eyes, alive, the daughters, the cave, the echo after the destruction. Lot flees with his daughters. He goes to a cave. His wife was left behind, but her absence weighs more than her presence. The daughters get their father drunk. They bear two cursed peoples. But what if the curse was already with them? What if the look back had sealed not only the woman, but the entire future? Moab, Ammon, nations that fought against Israel for centuries. Fruits of a collapse, of a trauma, of a woman who saw too much. Epilogue. The whisper of salt. We don't know where the statue is. Some say it dissolved with time. Others, that it still remains hidden among the hills of the Dead Sea. But the truth is, it doesn't need to be found. It is in everyone who clings to what has been, in every soul that hesitates between the calling and comfort, in every gaze that turns back, when it should move forward. Final reflection. What if it were you? What would you leave behind if God told you to flee now? How many memories hold your feet to ground that is already burning? Lot's wife is not just an ancient figure. She is a reflection, a mirror. Perhaps her salt still speaks, and perhaps It is speaking to you. Did you like this story? Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your strength helps us continue bringing more stories like this, deep, mystical, and that make us reflect on what lies behind the obvious. And remember, sometimes the punishment is not in the fire that falls, but in what remains in silence. Did you like what you saw? Then, like, share with your friends, and don't forget to leave a like to help us bring more cool content like this. Your support is very important, so we can continue bringing amazing news. Let's spread this message together. But before we begin, how about joining us on this journey? If you love learning more about the Bible and want to strengthen your faith, subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with your friends, family, and church. Let's spread this truth around.